Hi, everyone. Welcome. As I was just introduced, I'm Anicka Quin. I'm the editorial director of Western Living. I'm really excited to be talking about how to discover your design style, learning to create a Pinterest design board through the eyes of professionals. I'd love to introduce my fellow panelists here. So down at the end, we have Mila Djuras. She's the principal of Intermind Design Inc., one of the most awarded design-build boutique companies in Greater Vancouver, where every aspect of the project, from architectural and interior design, management, quality, and budget control, are solely coordinated by the designer. With 20 plus years of experience in the design build realm, Mila has successfully made a name for herself amongst a male-dominated industry. Beside her is Amanda Fedora, and she's the owner of and founder of Reside Design Studio Inc. Since studying at BCIT, she has spent over 14 years working with clients to achieve their design dreams. Every day, she continues to be inspired by new experiences and clients that motivate her to broaden her horizons as a designer. And last but not least, beside me here, serving clients throughout Greater Vancouver, Maria DeCotiis Interior Design is a full-service residential interior design firm with an emphasis on full service, designing elevated homes with both traditional and modern influences. Beyond blending styles, clients entrust the firm to consider the scale, function, and flow of their home, so the final product is as livable as it is luxe. So we're going to be chatting for about 20 minutes. We'll have some time at the end for questions, so save up your questions for then. And of course, all of these designers have booths out there that you can follow up with afterwards if you'd like to chat with them more too. So let's start with kind of the big obvious question. What exactly is Pinterest and what's its purpose? Do you want to start?
Sure. So basically Pinterest is like back in the day when we had a binder and we'd have tear sheets out of the magazine and we'd file it into our binder. It's basically a digital binder is what Pinterest is. And it's great. And it's a great place to curate images that are inspiring. So when you're thinking about building or a renovation, it's a great place to just put everything into one spot, and it's always at hand on your phone or computer. So that's what Pinterest is. Yeah.
And I wonder how much, maybe Mila, you might answer this too, how much has it changed over time? How much people use Pinterest boards versus, say, other ways that they came to you with ideas?
It has changed a lot. I would say that anyone younger than 45 is probably doing everything online, and they are doing it in a way that Pinterest is just one of the platforms. I've seen people doing Canva, doing Photoshop, doing all kinds of stuff. So any way that you choose to create your find, it's good enough.
And so, Amanda, what about what should someone focus on when they're gathering images?
I'd like to first start off by telling clients, don't focus on finding something that is exactly right in all aspects. You're looking for images that inspire you for the feeling that you want to create in your space. So focus on that first. And then I find that once you've gathered 25 to 50 images, then go back and look at each image and really ask yourself the questions. What did I like about that? Why is this drawing me to it? And then that is what I would say is what I want you to focus on. It is not thinking this has to be exactly my home for me to be able to save this image. It's what does it inspire me to create?
And so they're gathering images from online. Can they upload their own photos too?
Yes, you can. I find most people don't upload them, but you can upload your own images and save them on your boards. And then that just, again, creates dialogue between you and your designer, making sure that the words that we have used to describe the styles we're both understanding. Like that the saying, picture's worth 1,000 words, that is what Pinterest is for.
And Maria, how about, do you find that Pinterest can help a client discover what kind of style they're attracted to?
Yeah, absolutely. We have clients that come to us and I'll ask them, what's your style? And they're like, I have no idea. And so the first thing we do is we set up a Pinterest board and we say, start pinning. And it's amazing once you, and just like Amanda said, just pin, like don't be specific, just pin. And then you start looking through and you start to see cohesiveness. And then that's where a designer can come in and say, okay, well, I've noticed you've pinned, a lot of modern spaces or a lot of light woods. And then you start to see a pattern, and that's how you can start to develop your style.
And Mila, I think it might have been you talking about this. Sometimes people will come in and say, "Oh, I love mid-century modern," and then they start a Pinterest board, and it's like that's not mid-century modern. Do you find that this sort of changes by what they think they like, and then they start gathering?
Mostly, what happens for the most of the people is their attachment to anything they like is predominantly emotion. So the language of design is very different. So when you say, let's say, I like that exterior, you might like wood, you might like warm or dark, you might want light. Who knows what was on your mind? So one thing that I would highly suggest is before you even start your Pinterest, talk to as many people as you can and maybe interview a few professionals. One thing they can do for you is to give you a guideline for a budget. I find that researching online has one huge downfall. There is no money attached to it. And I find that people collect the photos of the things they absolutely cannot afford. And then there is that disappointment phase. Instead of enjoying the process, getting to know yourself better, you are actually disappointed at the beginning of the process because you cannot afford it. And if you wait too long, same thing applies what you mentioned about mid-century. If you have a house that it has its own bones, it's a limited, let's say, renovation that you can do, upgrading exterior to something that is very different. It's extremely costly and maybe not even possible with a code in your area. So I would say before starting collecting images, do as much research as you can and put some limits to what are you researching.
Maybe, Amanda, you can talk about budget too. At what point in the process does budget sort of become part of the discussion for you?
This is a little different than what Mila is saying. I find for Pinterest, I am mostly looking to figure out what it is that you are looking to achieve and how you want your home to look. When we go through those images afterwards, that's when I start talking about budget. I want to see how you feel about it first. I want to see what it is you're trying to evoke from your personality in your space. And then we're going to talk about what is realistic for your actual home from these images that you have collected. I'm more focused on using it for inspiration, feeling, and just trying to translate like who you are as a person to me as a designer. I want to get to know you, but through images.
Do you have anything you want to?
Yeah, I agree. I think Pinterest is about dreaming. Like start off and do all the dreaming. And then from there, we can always say, okay, we can't do a whole kitchen full of marble because it's going to take the budget too high, but maybe we can introduce a bit of marble somewhere else that you're still, essentially it could even just be the feeling, right? Like what feeling are we trying to evoke, even more so than just specific design elements? So I say for my clients, just dream, like pin away, and then from there you can start to narrow it down.
And how do you communicate? How does a client communicate with the designer what it is that they like about the image? Do you have suggestions for that?
When you do pin the images, you're pinning it to, I guess, a virtual board. And each image has a note section when you click on it. So on the side of it, you can add your thoughts. Maybe you just liked the chandelier in the dining room. Maybe you love that wood, but that cabinet color is awful. Like, we want to know what you love about those images, and then there's notes on each one. And then I can also, as the designer, look through your board and answer you back on things. We can also add our own notes when you add us as a collaborator to your board.
And that's a good note to share too. The Pinterest boards are very shareable, right? You can sort of send them to someone, you can invite someone to look at it, and it becomes a real collaborative. And I assume people probably get their friends weighing in on things too to say here. So I'm excited about this. Mila, you talk about observation to comprehension. You have this sort of way of looking at Pinterest boards. Can you talk about what you mean by that?
Yeah, uh, I run design build companies, so for me it's a very different responsibility from the beginning. So I need to be aware of everything that comes into the plate. So I we kind of have a different approach. I don't like being given 50 images. What I really like to do is to do subcategories. This is exterior, this is the feel of the house, this is the amount of the lighting, this is architectural design, this is interior design. And in each one of them, we try to get down to 10. I also do a lot of my own. What happens, let's say the people like certain thing, but their location, for example, it's way better if they move, so let's say from mid-century modern into West Coast, because the bones of the house are made for that. So in my Pinterest board that I share with the client, it's 50-50. 50% of their images, 50% of mine. And then we sit down and we look in every single photo. And that's why, being able to observe, I usually say to clients, call your best friend, buy the good wine, sit down and talk. So that is, you need to spend time looking into the image, realizing what is communicating with you, and then try to pass that to me, and then I will try to make that into design language. So that's where the comprehension comes. Based on experience, I would say out of 10 people, let's say 10 clients, eight of them, 80% ends up in a very different direction than they originally started.
Do you have any websites that you recommend people sort of dig into or for inspiration sources? I mean, obviously Western Living is one of them, but are there sites that you say, there's lots of great photos here, or there's, spaces that I think you might get inspired by, or anything like that?
I just search in the Pinterest bar what I'm looking for. If you're looking for a white kitchen with brass hardware or something, and or traditional design. So that's how I do it.
House is another platform that I recommend to clients. It's not as easily usable, I would say, as Pinterest. So Pinterest is the first one that I point people to, and then House is another one as well. It just, I think, shows up probably more professional photos on House. These are all projects that professionals have put up. Pinterest is a lot of DIY or other people sharing, just like you and me, just sharing things that inspire us.
And do you recommend one board? Do you recommend creating multiple boards? Like maybe if I wanted it like this, it would be on this board, but if I wanted it like this, it would be on this board. How do you recommend a client set things up?
I recommend initially one board, and then for you to go in and then organize it into boards that portray what you are hoping to achieve and communicate to me. So either break it down into rooms, it's kitchens, bathrooms that inspire you, or you could break it down into finishes, lighting, plumbing, actual materials that you're hoping to put into the space. But whatever is the way that allows you to communicate to me, but the organization, love it. I love it when people have a clear image and clear communication of things.
And I will add, so you can have the one board, but you can have sections. So if you have the home renovation, you can have master bedroom, bathroom, kitchen, and that's really helpful as well. And then there is also a button that you can push that says view all pins. And so it's a nice way of seeing everything that you've pinned, so you can see how it all flows together. So definitely using the section tool inside of the board.
Do you see any downsides to working with Pinterest?
I think for me, it's when you get an image and you want it to look exactly like that. And I think we touched on it briefly before. Pinterest is for inspiration. That home was designed for somebody else. So taking it as inspiration and not saying, this is what I want this exact room. And so that's that's the downfall that I've seen.
I would agree. That was took the word that we felt.
Are there any questions in the audience right now? Yep.
So, I'd like to be able to talk to my. I'd like to be able to talk to my designer, and for that we need language. And you all use language that I can understand. So, mid-century modern, no idea what that means. West Coast, there's a whole range of that. So, is there some place I can find like a glossary to talk to you, or can you give me language that I can then reflect on to give back to you? Because it seems to me language is really going to be one of the core ways of communicating. I would like to be able to communicate pretty clearly. So, like, let's start with a simple mid-century modern. What is that?
Right. Do you have this area or place that you recommend people go to?
Yes, that's why I really try to stay away from images that are irrelevant. Even if I'm going to give a suggestion what to do, I would say the most important thing is to ground yourself in a landscaping and area that you are geographically. So, for example, Palm Spring, a mid-century modern, is completely irrelevant for us. We don't have sunny weather. We don't have that kind of light. We have only few ranchers left. So nothing that you see in a Palm Spring or Mexico is going to look good here. So the main point is knowing where your house is located, what side is facing, how much of the greenery do you have, where the natural light is taking, what are you going to do with the 300 days of the rain. So for me, I would say what I do, I suggest to all my clients to check Portland, to check Seattle, to check Vancouver. Try to find something that your house can be related. Don't look in a New York apartment. You are never going to have Art Deco. We have one Art Deco building in the entire town. So inspiration is one thing, but being able to set yourself properly into what you're looking for, and especially that's a case with the big immigration that we have. People are coming from all over the world. The idea of how the colors are going to look like is completely different than what we see. So I would say get into the books. Nothing wrong with the books. You can find them digital. Find the good, for example, the language of design, because you really need them in order to communicate, particularly if you're looking in expensive project. If you're looking in a project that is $250,000, I would say get really serious about it. It's a lot of money to spend, and you want to be into it. You want your portrait painted by us.
Do either of you have suggestions about sort of some of the language that maybe people really immersed in design tend to throw around, but how to make clients sort of more comfortable with maybe not necessarily knowing what mid-century modern immediately looks like?
I think that's where the images really come into play. I think instead of defining it, it's really about looking through images, because everyone's mid-century modern might be a little bit different. And so what we do is we'll take all your images in the discussion, and we might throw those words out at you, but what we'll do is we'll come back with our own images, and we'll say that this is what we're thinking. So I wouldn't even worry so much about knowing what mid-century modern is as opposed to seeing what it is. And I think that's how communication between designer and client will help, because there is a difference, right? And everyone thinks differently. And so I think images are definitely the way to go and the best way to understand.
Any other questions in the audience right now? Speaking of images,
How do you help your client move from unrealistic fantasy to fantasy that might appeal to their limit?
how do you move from an unrealistic fantasy to but still getting a dream home out of it?
And I guess that's why they call us experts. No, but yes, I think you really need, if you want to do something like that, you will need a professional help. I think one big difference is that we do know how much things cost, and we also know how to find something really affordable and then put it next to something luxury. There is no good or bad design. It's all about the juxtaposition of the things. And I think, but that takes years of our education and trying the things. And I think professional help in that, I honestly think that we save people tons of money because we cut on the number of mistakes and we try really hard to understand exactly what is it that you want to tell us. How do you see yourself into that? So that's why I believe the budget has to be very clear from the beginning. Now it's a little bit better with internet, but when the television started with the Home and Garden show, it was absolute nightmare. I'm old enough to remember. Everybody thought everything can be done in a month and for 25,000. It was crazy time. Like people, so now internet is way better. It's more honest. So if you look, and also the whole business is more transparent. So in that sense, like all our invoices within the entire haven are open to the client. What we pay, you know it. We show previous projects. So each one of us can show you the project before, what was purchased, what was done, and how much that cost in 2022. And that's really the wealth of knowledge.
Which I agree with.
There's a question at the back.
Hi, thank you for the panel. So my name's Rena. I'm here with Jay as Realtors. And I have a question for you guys. First of all, there's so many designers out there as there are realtors. So I was curious to know if somebody was out to pick a designer, what's the best way to choose one? I mean, I don't know if it's just referrals or what somebody should look for. That's part one of my question. Second part is does the business overlay with staging? Do you guys even consider that? And maybe you can explain to people who don't know the staging process, if that's anything you would even entertain as designers. Thank you.
So how do you choose a designer? Anybody want to sort of jump in with that?
As you say, there are lots of designers out there. I think choosing your designer comes from in-person meeting. I think shows like this, where you get to really connect with people in person, is a big part of it. I think asking the right questions, talking to many of them, and seeing who you connect with the most, and asking about their processes. What services do they include? Not all designers offer the same services. And thinking about what you specifically as a homeowner are looking for in services, and if that designer is going to meet those needs for you. Some designers only want to do a full service package. Some are willing to do a la carte and tailor it to you. Everybody has their own way of doing things. So I think just in-person meeting and having real good conversation to start that off. And then talking about budget as well as part of that, because you might not be in the realm that that designer is able to work with or not, you know? So that is all about conversation and connection.
And do any of you do staging? Like, do you want to sort of maybe one of you talk about what home staging is, and is that something that any of you do as part of your practice?
We do everything. So we do architectural drawings for a permit, and then design to some degree, and then build a budget, and then finish design, and then we do actual renovation, let's say, or build a new home, and then we furnish it. I wouldn't call it staging, because staging generally means you want to be, your style is attractive to majority of the people, although you need one to buy the house, but you try to please everyone. What we do is pretty much on the opposite range. We try to customize as much as we can. And it's also how you work with the clients. I would say that it's absolutely true. You have to meet the person and find out, is that your sensibility? Are you comfortable with that? You know, some people are more daring, some people are less. Also depending what you are doing, if your renovation is for a home that will be sold in 5 years, customizing is expensive because you won't see the return. So that's why I think those conversations at the beginning are really crucial.
And I would just add to, when you are choosing your designer, is it someone that you trust? You know, is it someone that you would go sit down and have coffee with or have lunch with? Because it's a very intimate relationship. You know, we're asking you things like, you know, how do you cook? How do you live in your house? So I think that's really important. Your personality definitely you have to get along with them. That's a really big one. And design aesthetic. You know, if you're looking for a modern house and we do more classic, maybe that's not the right fit. So I think design aesthetic is also really, really important. And then in terms of staging, we do stage if you're purchasing the furniture, but if it's furniture to just rent, we don't do that.
Any other questions from the audience? Yes, do you have a question?
For my own particular situation and what I'm talking about, it's more refreshing. Like to refresh my unit, my home, and which has the original building cabinets and things in, and not so much moving things around. Has some furnishings. So just thinking about that, how would a designer be able to assist me? It's kind of not a complete change. It's more, and also you're talking about you specialize more in customizing. Yes, I do want some customization, but I also want to be able to sell the unit perhaps in the future. So make it appealing. So I guess I'm just talking about finding the balance and how a designer would be able to help with that. Does anyone want to jump in with that? I might get that project.
So you could always do, I know some designers, I myself offer consultations as a standalone service. So that's the first start. So you could have a designer come into your home, give you suggestions, ideas on how you can refresh it. And then it's, you know, if that's something that you want to take on yourself, so that could be something smaller that you could start with and see if you get along with that designer. If you are enjoying the ideas, then you can always take it further if you want, but that could be a start.
Our exhibitors, of course, are all out in the exhibition area, or designers are in the exhibition area and are available for follow-up questions as well. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
That person is different. They should have